Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we have ourselves a track from an ex named Dojokun titled Change. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen here on YouTube. Now it's been a wee while since I reviewed Dojokun's music. I think it was back 2021 if I'm not mistaken. It's good to check out more. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it. What have we got? Bit of organ to start, kick things off.
Out in the dappled light as the willow starts to sway, relax while the sun is bright and I wish the day away. The peaceful passing of the time as I resolve to stay. The aching thought inside of me was smothering me deep in clay.
Solid composition so far.
Shame, shame, shame from a life further away. Change, change, change with my mind in disarray. I never feel quite right. Who knows what I'll become? Must have been my state of mind in that baking sun. The secrets of a restful mind, like the beating of a drum. This feral thought inside of me had left me feeling numb. It's a shame, shame, shame from a life further away. Change, change, change with my mind in disarray.
Really fantastic vocal range to those harmonies as well on the hook. I dig just the amount of the layering, the intricacy of it.
Another freezing night. I wish that I could take a flight. Can't recognize the voice, the shaking one who gives me a joy. Another freezing night. The time we wait under the light. And how can you take no blame when you know it's shame, shame, shame from a life further away. Change, change, change with my mind in disarray. Shame, shame, shame from a life further away. Change, change, change on another sunny day.
So I think it was a really well shot music video. I feel like I have more questions than answers. We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an ex named Dojokun titled Change. In this section, I'm going to be providing an overall song analysis of everything from vocals and lyrics all the way through to production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally, my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? I think this track is about a conflicting set of emotions that Dojokun is feeling as they work their way through maybe a difficult time in their life. There are these extremes of the feeling of serenity versus this feral kind of voice that's unknowing there. We talk about the weather being baked out in the sun, but the cold as well. Maybe the cold is all these differing seasons that we experience as we go through our journey through the change that we're feeling. Either way, I think just simply from an analytical perspective, it's an interesting tale that I think I need another listen through to sort of really get the hang of, but I nonetheless appreciate. I feel like that the lyrics are intriguing. They paint some interesting images sort of like visually, like you can imagine what they're talking about there. And I think the vocal performance that goes alongside that seems incredibly effective. It's not just the vocal harmonies that we have in the choruses, the layers and the lows, mids and uppers. As we go through the track, we also explore the stereo field and have additional high range parts on the sides there. There's just a range of ways that we express ourselves throughout the piece there, which, irrespective of the vocals, is quite sophisticated and articulate due to the varying organ, guitar, bass and drum parts. It's just more that the storytelling itself seeks precedence as well and is effective in that. We're very comfortable sort of communicating with the listener there. We don't overstay our welcome. We allow space for the instruments to breathe within the arrangement. I think ultimately with the note choices being sensible and obeying the fundamentals of music theory and composition here, we simply have someone who's very comfortable in their head and chest voice, knows how to decorate the frequency spectrum and stereo field as a lead. It manages to find equilibrium between being sort of accessible and authentic enough to make it seem like they're going through things, whilst also having a sort of catchiness inherent to it as well. The track is 3 minutes 11, and we actually get so much within that space of time there, from the really kind of perky, funky organ part at the beginning. I like the ascending sort of arpeggio as we rail through those triads and have little articulations, legatos and trills, etc. And it's really neat just to have that much character at the beginning with the organ, you know, it's very cool. And the bass comes in with that boom, 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 and the drums and a little kind of da-da-dum fill, and we're straight into it with everything else. And that's within like the first 6 seconds. We're clearly very sort of attentive to the needs of retaining listener attention. We don't want them waiting for too long. And with the varying verses, chorus, interludes, etc. that we have scattered through the track, we do not overstay our welcome there either. It's just genuinely well-written music, and the structuring is really effective. We have this kind of shuffle that goes through with the drums for a lot of the parts, in between some syncopated parts and some other fill transfers there, that makes it almost seem like we're on a journey grooving away somewhere, where we're in the process, we're not in stasis necessarily. The bass dances around in the low end. It's not just that you've got the drums with the varying sort of ride, crash, sort of kick and snare patterns there amongst the toms and occasionals for the transfers. You've also got the bass working alongside that with rhythms that are rhythmically relevant and in unison with that a lot of the time there. It's nice to have that walking around as well, and we don't just have a consistent groove. Sometimes we go half time and then back to normal, etc. So there's a general change of pace to the rhythm section. It's just really neat to have that fluidity in the bass being allowed to explore the fretboard that much and not being sort of choked through like needing to sort of be more sort of like supportive of maybe the vocals or the guitar parts, for example, which to be fair aren't there all the time. We have this kind of tremolo or affectation. We'll go wah 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 with the guitar certain parts there. Other times we have this kind of offbeat, almost sort of dubby feel with the kind of gentle grit on those rhythm parts on the side there. And it's just nice to have the guitars as like an occasional extra layer there, as opposed to an all the time thing. It offers more variety within the mix. We have some cooler responses with some unison bends around like the 40-second mark, for example, before we go into the next section there. There's chemistry between the vocalist and the parts within the track, with some very sort of like country bluesish kind of approaches with the lower notes there. Just really interesting decoration. And there's a higher organ part that oscillates throughout parts of the track. It almost makes it seem similar like ethereal or ghostly, which is just an interesting touch. There's like a wow kind of synth, which adds an additional extra bit of sort of ghostliness to the piece. It's kind of spooky and wistful, and I'm not sure what we're walking into at the end when he opens the door to the place with the cross on it, like whether we're sort of like talking about an afterlife or a journey towards that or something like that. I'm not quite sure how to interpret that, but just I'm listening through this track and there's just so many cool riffs and ideas there. I like that there are different combinations of elements per section and that we're not just repeating the same sort of main chord progression of bass line the whole time. Even with that big finish with the on another sunny there, that big finish there, it's just so neat to have that extra bit of tension there on that final repeat to switch things up. We're definitively not taking the listener's attention for granted. And I'm like listening through some of the parts like in the 2-minute 15 mark and that interlude, and it's nice for the toms as well to kind of take precedent and sort of more sort of like see us through with the rhythmic accompaniment as opposed to primarily only focusing on the kick, snares and cymbals. Yeah, no, it would take a while to go into all the different sort of riff ideas and melodies and harmonies that we have per individual instrument. You can just be sure listening to this that Dojokun is basically spoiling us with what's on display, and it's not like glazing for the sake of glazing. I'm very happy with this as from a review perspective. It's very good. Thematically, we have this kind of minor leaning to it, which makes sense considering that we're struggling with the change. I like some of the country bluesy phrasing, which almost makes it seem a little bit sort of melancholic while we're trying to sort of be groovy through our suffering. We have some moments of tension and maybe some sort of like parallels or something along those lines of that interlude section, which had to find a little bit of a twist to the tale there, and just adding that kind of edge to it makes it a bit more exciting harmonically. And there are some major sections. I think we might have had like a bridge or something like that, or like a half of a verse or a chorus that is major oriented there, which, you know, having an entire sort of mood shift sort of counterbalance from maybe the minor leaning we have a lot of the time is just really kind of sick. It's just sensible stuff. I mean, like, so ultimately I think there's a bit of complication to the overall theme there, with a lot of the individual instruments playing like little melodies that coalesce and amalgamate into a wider concept. So I think it's difficult to pin down an overall feel to this, as opposed to it simply being more of an adventure that we have by proxy of it being about change. But ultimately, I feel like all the various elements from vocals and lyrics through the instrumental parts and the riffs they're playing make sense together. I don't think there's a note out of place. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering is commercial grade in my opinion, at least from like first listen basis. I like how the different guitar, bass, drum, organ, key, synth elements that come together. You've got great presence to the elements. They don't sort of compete with each other for attention within the frequency spectrum. There's no weird resonant frequencies. I like how the music surrounds you in the headphones, especially some of those vocal dubs and other bits there, and how the guitars kind of dance around, how the drums have space to pan effectively. There's dynamic range to this from a compositional perspective. It's a glued piece from the post perspective. They weren't trying to have a huge amount of dynamic range there, but I think that's totally fine in this situation. They wanted a tight 3-minute single and they got it. Nice and loud, bit of pumping, bus compression, limiting is handled. No applicable constructive critique. I just think, my general thoughts from a listener's perspective is that this is just, again, a great isolated concept. It seems like a really important, mature, sort of like multi-audiovisual experience from Dojokun, who seems like they're working through stuff, and I wish them all the best on their adventure. I just appreciate when people put this much work into both sides of it. It's incredibly compelling. And yeah, it's great to hear more music. But thank you very much for watching my review of this track from Dojokun, titled Change. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.